Private Jack Harris stared out the viewport as the transport shuttle approached the massive ship that would be his home for the next 6 months. The ISS horizon stretched before him, its silver hull gleaming against the backdrop of stars. At 5 miles long, it was the pride of the Interstellar Coalition Fleet, a vessel dedicated to scientific research and exploration. Jack swallowed hard. At 24 years old, he was the first human ever to serve on a Coalition vessel. Earth had only made first contact 15 years ago, and the more advanced species still viewed humans as primitives. The fact that he was here at all was considered a miracle by his superiors back home. "Preparing for docking sequence," announced the pilot, a blue-skinned aeroline with 4 arms that moved with fluid grace across the control panel. "Human, secure yourself." Jack nodded and tightened his safety harness. He had long since given up correcting aliens who referred to him by his species rather than his name. To most of them, all humans looked alike anyway. The shuttle shuddered as it connected with the horizon's docking bay. A soft hiss indicated pressure equalization, and then the door slid open with a metallic groan. "Proceed to processing," the pilot said without looking at him. "Your liaison will meet you there." Jack grabbed his small duffel bag and stepped through the airlock. The air inside the horizon smelled different cleaner, with a faint metallic tang that tickled the back of his throat. The gravity felt slightly stronger than Earth's standard, making his movements seem sluggish and awkward. A tall, reptilian figure waited at the end of the corridor. Commander Vorzek, according to the insignia on his uniform, stood at least 7 feet tall. His scales shifted between deep blue and emerald green, and his yellow eyes narrowed as Jack approached. "Private Harris reporting for duty, sir," Jack sighed, standing at attention and offering a crisp salute. Vorzek's forked tongue flicked out briefly, tasting the air. "So the human has arrived. You are smaller than I expected." Jack maintained his stance. At 6 feet tall, he was actually quite large by human standards. But among the various species of the Coalition, humans were decidedly average in size. "Your assignment has already been decided," Vorzek continued, turning without waiting for a response. "Follow me to orientation." They walked through corridors filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some resembled Earth animals with humanoid features, while others defied any comparison to terrestrial life. Most ignored Jack, though a few stared openly, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. The orientation room was small and sparse, containing only a central holographic projector and a few seats designed for various body types. Jack found one that looked somewhat suitable for human anatomy and sat down. "The Interstellar Coalition has existed for over 2,000 years, Vorzek began without preamble. Over 100 species work together for mutual benefit and protection. Earth is not yet a member, merely a protectorate under consideration." The holographic display showed a map of the known galaxy, with Coalition territory highlighted in green. Earth sat at the very edge, a tiny blue dot barely within the boundary. "Your presence here is a gesture of goodwill," Vorzek continued, his tone making it clear what he thought of that gesture. "You will be assigned to xenobiological containment. The specimens are already sedated and pose minimal threat. Even a human should manage." Jack tried not to show his disappointment. He had hoped for a more challenging assignment, something that would allow him to prove humans were worthy of respect. Instead, he was being assigned as essentially a zookeeper. "You will report to Dr. Kellena in Containment Section 12 at the beginning of each shift. Your quarters are in Section 8, Level 3, Room 42. Your access card is limited to those areas and common facilities." Vorzek handed him a small metallic rectangle. "Do not attempt to access restricted areas. The consequences would be unpleasant." "Yes, sir." "I understand," Jack replied, accepting the card. "One final thing, human," Borzek said, leaning closer. You are here because your government insisted on representation. I did not vote in favor of this experiment. Prove me wrong about your species, if you can. With that, the commander turned and left the room, leaving Jack alone with the slowly rotating galactic map. His first day passed in a blur of unfamiliar corridors and alien faces. He found his quarters a cramped space, barely large, enough for the bed and small desk it contained, and then located the mess hall, where he discovered that while the Coalition had made efforts to synthesize Earth-compatible food, the results were a barely edible. The next morning, Jack reported to Dr. Kellena, a willowy being with pale, almost translucent skin and 4 eyes that blinked independently of each other. You must be the human, she said, her voice musical and light. I have studied your species biology. Fascinating immune system, though rather primitive nervous system. Thank you. I think, Jack replied. Follow me. I will show you your duties. Containment. Section 12 turned out to be a long corridor with transparent cells on either side, each housing a different alien creature. Some were plant-like, others insectoid or reptilian, and a few were simply masses of pulsating tissue with no discernible features. These specimens have been collected from various unexplored systems, Dr. Kellena explained. We study them to understand their biology, behavior, and potential benefits to the Coalition. Your job is to monitor them, feed them according to the schedule, and alert me if you notice any changes or anomalies. She handed him a tablet-like device. This contains all the information you need about each specimen and their care requirements. Jack nodded, trying to absorb everything. I'll do my best. See that you do. These specimens are extremely valuable. Some are the last of their kind. As they reached the end of the corridor, Jack noticed a heavily reinforced door with warning. Symbols flashing on its control panel. What's in there? He asked. Dr. Kellena's 4 eyes all focused on him at once, an unsettling experience. That is containment cell Omega. It houses our newest acquisition, a predator species from the edge of explored space. You are not to approach that cell without supervision. Is that clear? Yes, Doctor. Good. Now, let me show you the feeding protocols. The rest of the day passed uneventfully as Jack learned his responsibilities. That night, lying on his too-firm bed in his tiny quarters, he stared at the ceiling and wondered if he had made a mistake in accepting this assignment. 1 week into his new role, Jack had settled into a routine. The work was simple, if somewhat tedious. Most of the specimens ignored him as he went about his duties, though a few seemed curious about this new caretaker. It was during his 2nd week that Jack first heard the voice, soft whisper that seemed to come from inside his own head. Human, come closer. Jack froze. A feeding canister halfway to one of the specimen tanks. He looked around, but the corridor was empty. Here, at the end. I wish to see you closer. His eyes drifted to the reinforced door of containment cell Omega. The warning lights still flashed, but now the small viewing panel was illuminated, revealing nothing but darkness within. Against his better judgment, Jack approached the cell. Hello? He whispered, feeling foolish immediately afterward. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a shape moved in the darkness behind the viewing panel. 6 iridescent eyes blinked open, all fixed directly on him. At last, the voice in his head said, Someone who can hear me. Jack stepped back from the viewing panel, his heart racing. 6 glowing eyes watched him from the darkness of containment cell Omega. You can hear me, the voice in his mind said again. It wasn't a question. Jack looked around nervously. The corridor remained empty, but security cameras monitored every section of the containment area. Who are you? Jack whispered. A soft clicking sound came from inside the cell, followed by what could only be described as a purr. I am called many things by many species. The Zularians who captured me designated me Specimen Omega. My kind called themselves Nexus. Jack hesitated, unsure if he was losing his mind. Telepathic communication wasn't supposed to be possible, at least not with humans. None of the briefing materials had mentioned this ability. "Why can I hear you?" he asked. The creature moved closer to the viewing panel. Jack could now make out a sleek, obsidian exoskeleton and multiple limbs that ended in what looked like scythe-like appendages. "Your species has an interesting mind structure," Nexus replied. "Open, adaptable. The others here are." Close to me, the creature's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "You fear me. That is wise, but unnecessary at this moment. The file says you killed 3 handlers," Jack said. "They tried to force compliance through pain." I responded in kind. The creature shifted position. "You are different. You listen." A sound from the far end of the corridor made Jack turn. Dr. Kellena was entering the containment area. He quickly moved away from Cell Omega and pretended to check one of the other specimens. "Private Harris," she called. "Your shift ended 20 minutes ago." "Sorry, Doctor. I was just making sure all the feeding schedules were completed," Jack replied, hoping his voice sounded normal. All 4 of Kellena-S eyes narrowed slightly. Commendable diligence. "However, regulations must be followed. Return to your quarters." "Yes, Doctor." Jack nodded and headed for the exit. As he passed Cell Omega, he heard the voice once more. "We will speak again, Jack Harris." The next day, Jack found it hard to focus on his duties. Questions about Nexus filled his mind. How did the creature know his name? He hadn't introduced himself. What was its species, and why was it so heavily secured compared to the other specimens? During his lunch break, he used his access card to search the ship's database for information about Specimen Omega. Most files were restricted, but he found a basic report that described the creature as an apex predator with advanced problem-solving abilities and possible rudimentary sentience. It had been captured near the edge of Coalition space, in a region known as the Void area, largely unexplored due to strange energy readings that interfered with ship systems. When Jack returned to Containment Section 12 for his afternoon shift, he deliberately saved Cell Omega for last. When the corridor was empty, he approached the viewing panel again. "Nexus?" he whispered. The 6 eyes opened immediately. "You returned. Good. I want to understand what you are," Jack said. "Understanding requires time and trust." The creature moved closer to the panel. In the dim light, Jack could see more details of its form. What he had thought was simply a black exoskeleton actually contained subtle patterns that resembled star constellations. "My kind were once guardians of this galaxy," Nexus continued, "before the rise of the Coalition, before the Zularians spread their influence across the stars." "Guardians?" Jack asked. "What happened to your people? Extinction? Or near to it?" "I may be the last." There was no sadness in the mental voice, only a cold statement of fact. "Those who now rule the Coalition feared what they could not control." Jack frowned. "Why should I believe you? The Coalition has brought peace to hundreds of worlds." "Has it? Or has it brought conformity?" Nexus's eyes blinked in that strange, sequential pattern. "Ask yourself, human, why is your species kept at arm's length? Why are you, their representative, assigned to the lowest position?" Before Jack could respond, the creature continued, "They fear what is different, what cannot be easily categorized and controlled. They fear your species for the same reason they feared mine." The conversation left Jack unsettled. Over the next few days, he found himself returning to speak with Nexus whenever he could do so unobserved. The creature shared knowledge of distant star systems, ancient histories not recorded in Coalition archives, and insights into the other specimens in containment. That one, Nexus said, referring to a floating jellyfish-like creature Jack had just fed, comes from a water world where its kind developed complex mathematics through song. The Coalition harvests them for the chemicals they produce, claiming they are non-sentient. They are wrong. Jack began to see his surroundings through new eyes. He noticed how the non-Zularian crew members were almost always in subordinate positions. How species that resembled the reptilian Zularians received preferential treatment. How his own human nature was constantly viewed as a liability rather than an asset. 2 weeks after his first contact with Nexus, Jack was approached by another human, the only other one aboard the Horizon. Lieutenant Samantha Reeves served as a medical officer, one of the few positions where humans were considered naturally skilled. "Private Harris," she said, catching him as he left the mess hall. "Do you have a moment?" "Of course, Lieutenant," Jack replied, surprised. Although they had nodded to each other in passing, this was the first time she had initiated a conversation. Samantha led him to a quiet corner where they wouldn't be overheard. She was in her early 30s, with short brown hair and alert green, eyes that missed nothing. "I've reviewed your medical scans from your weekly check-in," she said in a low voice. "Your brain activity shows unusual patterns. Are you experiencing anything?" Strange? Jack hesitated. Could he trust her? But if anyone might understand, it would be another human. "I've been hearing a voice," he admitted, "from one of the specimens in containment, Cell Omega." Instead of looking shocked or concerned, Samantha nodded slowly. "I suspected as much. The creature's neurological patterns are unlike anything in Coalition records. There were theories about telepathic abilities, but no one could prove it." She studied his face. "You can actually communicate with it?" "Yes, it calls itself Nexus. It claims its species were once guardians of the galaxy." "Interesting." Samantha glanced around to make sure they were still alone. "Jack, you need to be careful. Commander Vorzek has been pushing to have that creature destroyed for weeks. Dr. Kellena has only kept it alive by arguing for its research value." "Destroyed? But why?" "Fear." Samantha's expression was grim. "The same reason they're hesitant about accepting Earth into the Coalition. Anything they can't predict or control is seen as a threat." Jack thought about what Nexus had told him. Is Earth really being considered for membership? Samantha's pause told him everything. Officially, yes. Unofficially, ... I've overheard things. There's something called Contingency Epsilon. I don't know the details, but it's mentioned whenever Earth comes up in private conversations among the senior officers. A chill ran down Jack's spine. "I need to find out what that is." "Be careful," Samantha warned. "If they discover you're communicating with Specimen Omega or accessing restricted information, ... She didn't need to finish the sentence. As Jack headed back to his quarters that night, his mind raced with new questions. What was Contingency Epsilon? Why did the Coalition fear both humans and Nexus? And most importantly, what would happen when they discovered he could communicate with the creature they so desperately wanted to destroy? The next morning, Jack made a decision. He would find answers, no matter the risk. As he approached Cell Omega at the start of his shift, he whispered, "Nexus, I need your help." The 6 iridescent eyes opened immediately. "I have been waiting for you to say those words, Jack Harris." "I need to access restricted files," Jack said quietly to Nexus, glancing nervously at the security cameras. "Something called Contingency Epsilon. It might be a threat to Earth." The 6 iridescent eyes studied him carefully. "The security systems on this vessel are primitive compared to what my kind once built," Nexus replied. "I can help you, but you must do exactly as I instruct." Over the next hour, Nexus guided Jack through a series of steps to create a small blind spot in the security camera coverage. The creature's knowledge of the ship's systems was impressive and unsettling. Once they had a few minutes of privacy, Nexus shared more. "Place your hand on the panel," the creature instructed. Jack hesitated, then pressed his palm against the cool surface of the viewing panel. A strange tingling sensation spread up his arm, and suddenly his mind was flooded with images and information. "What was that?" he gasped, pulling his hand away. "A more efficient method of communication," Nexus explained. "I have given you access codes for the central database. You will find them in your mind when you need them." Jack nodded, still shaken by the experience. "Thank you. A warning, Jack Harris. The more we communicate this way, the stronger our connection becomes. The Zularians will notice the changes in your brain patterns eventually." Jack thought of Samantha's warning about his medical scans. "I think they already have." That night, Jack waited until the lights dimmed for ship's night. Cycle before acting. Using the access codes Nexus had somehow planted in his mind, he connected his tablet to a maintenance terminal in a quiet corner of the common area. The codes bypassed the normal security protocols, giving him access to files that should have been far beyond his clearance level dot. It took nearly an hour to find what he was looking for. Contingency Epsilon was buried deep in classified military protocols. What Jack read made his blood run cold. The file detailed plans for the containment and neutralization of Earth if humanity was deemed a threat to coalition stability. The Zularian High Command had already built a case against Earth, citing humans' aggressive tendencies, unpredictable behavior, and rapid technological adaptation. According to the plan, Earth would be quarantined, its budding space program dismantled, and if necessary, strategic strikes would be authorized against major population centers to ensure compliance. Jack downloaded the files to his tablet with shaking hands. The peaceful, benevolent coalition he had believed in was preparing for the possible destruction of his homeworld. And the decision was to be made in just 3 months after evaluating the human integration experiment, HIM. The next morning, Jack went straight to Samantha's medical office. "I need to talk to you," he said as soon as the door closed behind him. "It's about Contingency Epsilon." Samantha's eyes widened. "You found something? How?" Jack hesitated, not wanting to reveal Nexus's involvement. "I have access to some maintenance systems. I managed to find the files." He showed her the tablet. As she read, her face drained of color. "This can't be right," she whispered. "The Coalition Charter explicitly forbids preemptive military action against developing worlds. Apparently, the Zularians don't care much for their own rules when they're afraid." Jack replied bitterly. Samantha looked up from the tablet. "What are we going to do?" "We have to warn Earth, but all communications are monitored." "I don't know yet, but there's something else I need to show you." Jack took a deep breath. "I need you to meet Nexus." Samantha followed Jack to the containment section during her break. Jack had timed it perfectly. Dr. Kellena was in a research meeting, and the other staff were occupied elsewhere. "This is dangerous," Samantha muttered as they approached Salomega. "If we're caught, we won't be," Jack assured her, though he was far from certain. "Nexus, we're here." The 6 eyes opened in the darkness. "The healer," Nexus observed. "She has a strong mind," Samantha gasped. "I can hear it too. In my head." Nexus believes that humans have some natural ability that makes us receptive to their form of communication, Jack explained. "That's why the Zularians fear both our species." "Your companion is correct," Nexus said. "The Zularians rose to power after the fall of my kind. They fear what they cannot control, and both our species represent that fear." Samantha approached the viewing panel cautiously. "Is it true that your species were guardians of the galaxy?" "We maintained balance," Nexus replied, "not through conquest, but through understanding." We could communicate with many species, share knowledge, prevent conflicts before they began. The Zularians preferred a more direct approach to establishing order. "Why are you telling us this?" Samantha asked. "Why help us?" The creature's mental voice became softer. "Because I see in humans what my kind once were. Adaptable, compassionate despite your capacity for violence. You balance strength with mercy, a rare trait in this galaxy." Jack and Samantha exchanged glances. "We need to warn Earth about contingency." "Epsilon," Jack said. "And we need proof to show the other Coalition species what the Zularians are planning." "There is a way," Nexus replied, "but it will require courage and trust." Before the creature could explain further, an alarm began to blare throughout the containment section. Red lights flashed in the corridor. "Attention all personnel," came Commander Vorzek's voice over the ship-wide communication system. "Security breach detected in restricted files. All off-duty security officers report to stations. Section heads begin security protocols." "They—" "No," Jack said, his heart pounding. "They know someone accessed the files." Samantha grabbed his arm. "We have to go. Now, if they find us here—" "Wait," Nexus interrupted. "Jack Harris, place your hand on the panel once more." Despite Samantha's protest, Jack did as Nexus asked. The same tingling sensation spread through his arm, but stronger this time. Images flashed through his mind, schematics of the ship, security, patrol routes, access codes for restricted areas, and something else, ... A hidden message system used by Coalition dissidents. "What did you do?" Jack asked, pulling his hand away. "Given you what you need," Nexus replied. "Now go. They are coming." Jack and Samantha hurried from the containment section, trying to look calm as they passed other crew members responding to the alarm. They split up in the main corridor, agreeing to meet later in the recreation area where they would attract less attention. When Jack reached his quarters, he found 2 Zularian security officers waiting for him. "Private Harris," one of them said, "Commander Vorzek requires your presence immediately." Jack's mouth went dry, but he nodded. Of course. They escorted him to the command level of the ship, an area he had never visited before. Commander Vorzek waited in a sparse office, his scales a dark blue that Jack had learned indicated anger or suspicion. "Private Harris," Vorzek said as Jack was brought in. "It seems we have a security breach. Someone accessed highly classified files using maintenance codes." Jack kept his face neutral. "That's concerning, sir." Vorzek studied him, yellow eyes unblinking. "Indeed. Most concerning is that the access point was traced to the common area near the living quarters." "Your living quarters." "There are many crew members in that section, sir," Jack replied, hoping his voice didn't betray his fear. "True. And yet the timing of the breach coincides with some unusual readings from containment Sal Omega." Vorzek leaned forward. "Dr. Kellena reports that you have been spending extra time near that particular specimen." Jack felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back. "I find all the specimens fascinating, sir. As the first human in the Coalition, I want to learn as much as I can." Vorzek's scales shifted slightly, showing patches of green. A commendable attitude. "However, given the sensitivity of the situation, I am reassigning you to maintenance duty effective immediately. You will no longer have access to the containment section." "Yes, sir," Jack said, relieved that the punishment wasn't worse. "You are dismissed. Report to Chief Engineer Grell at the start of your next shift." As Jack turned to leave, Vorzek added, "And Harris? Remember that the human integration experiment has many facets. Your performance reflects on your entire species." The threat was clear. Jack nodded and left the office, his mind racing. He needed to find Samantha and tell her what had happened. And somehow, They needed to warn Earth before it was too late. Jack reported to Chief Engineer Grell the next morning. The Bracken engineer was short and stocky, with forearms and gray, leathery skin covered in tool pouches. His species was known for their technical skills, and Grell had little patience for anyone who couldn't keep up. "You'll be cleaning maintenance tunnels and replacing worn components," Grell said gruffly. "Follow instructions. Don't touch anything not on your work order, and stay out of restricted sections." Jack nodded, accepting the toolkit and work tablet. His new assignment was mind-numbing, but it gave him access to parts of the ship most crew members never saw. Using the knowledge Nexus had transferred to him, Jack began mapping the ship's hidden systems and security blind spots. For 3 days, he worked diligently, giving no one reason to suspect he was doing anything but his assigned tasks. He managed to meet Samantha briefly in the mess hall, where they spoke in low voices while pretending to discuss human dietary needs. "I can't get back into containment," Jack told her. "They've restricted my access completely. They're watching." "Me too," Samantha replied. "Extra medical reviews of my work, surprise inspections of my office. But I've learned something. They're moving up the timeline for Contingency Epsilon. The Zularian High Command will vote in 2 weeks, not 3 months." Jack felt a chill run through him. Why the change? "There's a draconian fleet moving through Sector 12. The Zularians are using it as an excuse to increase military readiness across all sectors, including Earth's. The Draconians were the Coalition's longtime enemies, a warrior race that had resisted joining the Galactic Alliance. They're periodic. Raids along the borders of Coalition space were usually met with swift retaliation. "We need to contact Nexus," Jack said. "Did you try the communication method I showed you?" Samantha nodded. "It works, but it's limited. Nexus says the Zularians are planning something else, too. They're going to terminate the specimen tomorrow, after final testing." Jack's heart sank. Without Nexus, they had no chance of warning Earth or exposing the Zularians' plans. "We have to do something. Nexus says there's a way, but ... double quote Samantha hesitated. "It's risky. We'd be committing treason against the Coalition." Before she could explain further, her communication device beeped. She checked it and frowned. "Emergency and medical. I have to go." As she left, she whispered, "Maintenance Shaft 42, Level 3. Tonight at ship's midnight." Jack spent the rest of his shift in a state of nervous anticipation. When ship's midnight finally arrived, he made his way to the designated meeting spot. Using the service quarters to avoid security patrols, Maintenance Shaft 42 was narrow and dimly lit, lined with power conduits and data cables. Samantha was already there, along with an unexpected third person, a young Illuvian communications officer named Larrick. His translucent skin glowed faintly in the low light. "Can we trust him?" Jack asked immediately. "Yes," Samantha said firmly. "Larrick's people were subjugated by the Zularians a century ago. He's part of a resistance network within the Coalition." Larrick nodded, his large, pupil-less eyes blinking slowly. "Many species grow tired of Zularian dominance. We've been watching you, Jack Harris. Your connection with the being in Cell Omega is unprecedented." "Nexus," Jack corrected automatically. "Its name is Nexus." "Yes, Nexus," Larrick agreed. "The creature is not what the Zularians claim. It belongs to an ancient species the Zularians have tried to erase from historical records." "We need to save Nexus and warn Earth," Samantha cut in. "Larrick has a plan." The Illuvian pulled up a schematic on his tablet. "The horizon will pass near an automated communications relay station in 6 hours. I can create a brief window where a shuttle could leave undetected and transmit a message to Earth through the relay. But we'd need authorization to use a shuttle," Jack pointed out. "Not if there's an emergency that requires immediate medical evacuation," Samantha replied. "As senior medical officer, I can authorize it. Jack understood immediately. But first, we need to get Nexus out. Larrick nodded. I've arranged a ship-wide communications drill for 0400 hours. It will create a 3-minute gap in security monitoring. That's your window to reach containment and release Nexus. And if we're caught? Jack asked. Then Earth remains ignorant of the threat. Nexus is destroyed, and we face charges of treason, Samantha said bluntly. But if we do nothing, Earth could be attacked without warning. Jack took a deep breath. I'll do it. But how do we release Nexus? The cell requires special access. Nexus shared this with me, Samantha said, handing him a small device. It will override the cell controls, but only works once. They spent the next few hours finalizing their plan. As ship's dawn approached, they separated to avoid suspicion. Jack returned to his quarters to rest, but sleep wouldn't come. Everything he had believed about the coalition had been a lie. Now he was about to betray his oath as a soldier to save his planet at precisely 0350 hours. Jack made his way toward the containment section, using the maintenance tunnels to avoid security. He carried only the override device and wore the standard maintenance uniform. If stopped, he would claim to be fixing a reported air filtration. He reached the entrance to the containment section, just as the ship-wide communications drill began. As promised, the security monitors went dark. Jack swiped his maintenance card, which Larrick had modified to grant him temporary access. The door slid open silently. The containment corridor was eerily quiet, the specimens in their cells seemingly asleep or inactive. Jack moved quickly to Cell Omega at the far end. Nexus, he whispered as he approached. I'm here. The 6 iridescent eyes opened immediately. You came, despite the danger. They're planning to terminate you today, Jack sighed, attaching the override device to the cell's control panel. We're getting you out. The Zularians fear what will happen if I am freed, Nexus replied. They are right to fear it. The override device beeped softly as it worked through the security protocols. Jack glanced nervously at his timekeeper. Less than 2 minutes remained before the security systems would reactivate. What will you do if we succeed? He asked. Help you save your world, Nexus answered, and perhaps restore some balance to this galaxy. The control panel flashed green, and the reinforced door began to slide open with a soft hiss. For the first time, Jack saw Nexus in full light. The creature was larger than he had imagined, standing nearly 8 feet tall. Its obsidian exoskeleton gleamed with subtle patterns that shifted like stars in a night sky. Multiple limbs unfolded from its body, some ending in delicate, finger-like appendages, others in the scythe-like extensions he had glimpsed before. Despite its fearsome appearance, there was an undeniable grace to its movements. We need to hurry, Jack said, checking his timekeeper again. Security will be back online in 40 seconds. Nexus moved with surprising speed for its size, gliding out of the cell that had been its prison. Lead the way, Jack Harris. They had just reached the corridor when the lights suddenly blazed full brightness. An alarm blared throughout the section, and the doors at both ends of the corridor slammed shut. Security systems have been activated ahead of schedule, announced a computerized voice. Containment breach detected. Emergency lockdown initiated. Jack's heart sank. We're trapped. Nexus moved beside him. Not for long. Before Jack could ask what the creature meant, the ship lurched violently. Warning klaxons sounded throughout the vessel, different from the containment breach alarm. Attention all personnel, came Commander Vorzek's voice over the ship-wide communication system. Battle stations immediately. Draconian vessels detected on intercept course. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Jack looked at Nexus in shock. The Draconians are attacking? Now? A fortunate coincidence, Nexus replied. though something in its mental voice suggested it was not surprised. The Draconians have excellent timing. Another violent shake ran through the ship, stronger than the first. The lights flickered, and suddenly the security lockdown released as emergency power protocols took over. "Come," Nexus said. "We must find your companion and reach the shuttle bay. The Draconians will not fire on a medical evacuation vessel." "How do you know that?" Jack asked as they moved into the main corridor, which was now filled with crew members. Rushing to battle stations. Because the Draconians, unlike the Zolarians, still honor the ancient codes of warfare that my kind established long ago, Nexus replied. "Now hurry. Your world's fate hangs in the balance." Jack and Nexus moved through the chaos of the ship, using the confusion of battle stations to avoid detection. Crew members ran past them, too focused on their emergency duties to notice the strange pair. When anyone did glance their way, Nexus seemed to blur in their vision, as if minds simply couldn't process what they were seeing. "Are you doing something to make us less visible?" Jack asked as they ducked into a service corridor. "Perception manipulation," Nexus replied. "A basic skill of my kind. Most species see what they expect to see." They reached the medical bay to find Samantha already preparing an emergency shuttle. She looked up in shock when Nexus entered behind Jack. "You got it. You got out," she stammered. "The Draconians arrived early," Jack explained quickly. "Is the shuttle ready?" "Almost. Lyric is uploading the evidence about contingency Epsilon now. Once that's done, we can—" The door to the medical bay slid open, and Commander Vorzek stepped in, flanked by 2 security officers. His scales were dark blue with streaks of black, a color Jack had never seen before. "I suspected the human might attempt something foolish," Vorzek said, his voice cold as he raised his pulse rifle. "But I did not expect treason of this magnitude." Jack moved instinctively in front of Samantha. "It's not treason to stop you from attacking an innocent planet." "Innocent?" Vorzek's yellow eyes narrowed. "Your species would destroy the balance of the coalition. Your unpredictability, your aggression, your rapid adaptation. You are too dangerous to be allowed free development." "That is not your decision to make," Nexus spoke, its mental voice somehow projecting to everyone in the room. "No species has the right to determine the fate of another." Vorzek's attention shifted to Nexus, and real fear showed in his eyes. "You should have been destroyed when we found you. The ancient ones were supposed to be extinct. Yet here I stand," Nexus replied, "and I have made my choice. Humans will have their chance in this galaxy, with or without your blessing." The ship rocked again from another attack. The lights flickered, and emergency power kicked in. Vorzek steadied himself against the wall, but kept his weapon trained on them. "You have doomed yourselves," he said. "Even if you escape the ship, where will you go? The Coalition controls this entire sector. Earth is surrounded by our outposts." "We'll find a way," Jack said, though he had no idea how they would manage it. Vorzek's communication device beeped urgently. "Commander," came a panicked voice, "the Draconian ships are not attacking at random. They're targeting our weapon systems and engines with surgical precision." "How is that possible?" Vorzek demanded. "Their targeting systems have never been that accurate. Unknown, sir. But they're broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding we release the Ancient Guardian immediately." Jack and Samantha exchanged surprised glances. Vorzek looked at Nexus with new understanding. "You summoned them," he said. "How?" "I have been broadcasting since the moment I was captured," Nexus replied calmly. "Very few species can detect the frequency. The Draconians are among them." Another blast rocked the ship, stronger than the previous ones. Warning lights flashed throughout the medical bay. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 6, announced the ship's computer. "Life support failing in sections 12 through 15. All personnel evacuate to emergency stations. One of Vorzik's security officers spoke urgently. Sir, we need to get to the command center. The ship is taking critical damage. Vorzik hesitated, his weapon still trained on the group. Finally, he lowered it slightly. This isn't over. He sighed. The Coalition will never allow your species to threaten galactic stability. Perhaps the Coalition needs to remember its original purpose, Nexus replied. Protection and cooperation, not control and fear. Vorzik backed toward the door, his officers following. You have 10 minutes before I lock down all escape vessels. Use them wisely. As soon as he was gone, Samantha rushed to complete the shuttle preparations. Larrick finished the upload. The evidence about contingency Epsilon has been transmitted to multiple resistance cells across the Coalition. They'll make sure it reaches Earth and other worlds. Jack helped her power up the shuttle systems. What about Larrick? Is he coming with us? He said he'd meet us here, but... Samantha looked worried. The medical bay door opened again, and Larrick stumbled in, clutching his side where blue fluid seeped between his fingers. Security stopped me, he gasped. I got away, but not before this. Jack helped him into the shuttle, while Samantha grabbed medical supplies. Can you treat him? Jack asked. I think so, but we need to move now, she replied, applying pressure to Larrick's wound. With Nexus folding its large form carefully into the rear compartment, they sealed the shuttle and initiated launch procedures. The small vessel detached from the horizon with a metallic clunk, thrusters pushing them away from the damaged research ship. Through the viewport, they could see the Draconian vessel's sleek, predatory ships that moved with incredible speed and precision. One of them changed course to approach their shuttle. They're going to fire on us, Samantha said, fear evident in her voice. No, Nexus replied. They are escorting us. Sure enough, the Draconian vessel took up position alongside their shuttle, guiding them away from the battle. A communication request flashed on their console. Jack accepted it warily. A draconian face appeared on the screen, reptilian like the Zolarians, but with a more avian quality to its features. Humans, the draconian said in heavily accented standard language. We have received your transmission about the Zolarian plans for your world. The Draconian Imperium offers sanctuary and safe passage to Earth, so you may warn your people. Jack was stunned. Why would you help us? The Draconian's expression was unreadable. The Ancient One who travels with you is explanation enough. When a Guardian chooses an ally, the galaxy takes notice. In the back of the shuttle, Nexus moved forward slightly. Captain Corax, it has been many cycles. Too many, Guardian, the Draconian replied with what might have been respect. The old ways are not forgotten by all. The communication ended, and Jack turned to Nexus. You know the Draconians? My kind maintained relationships with many species, including those who refused to join the Coalition. Nexus explained. The Draconians remember the time before Zularian dominance. They honor the old alliances. Samantha finished treating Larrick's wound and joined them. So what happens now? We go to Earth? Yes, Jack replied. We warn them about contingency Epsilon and prepare them for whatever comes next. And after that? She asked. Jack looked at Nexus. The creature's 6 eyes blinked in that strange sequence. He had come to recognize as thoughtfulness. After that, Nexus said, we change the galaxy. The Zularians have maintained their control through fear and manipulation for too long. Many species grow tired of their rule. Your evidence about their plans for Earth will create ... opportunities. For war? Jack asked, concerned. For choice, Nexus corrected. Species should determine their own paths, form their own alliances. The Coalition was meant to be a council of equals, not empire. As their shuttle moved away from the battle, a Draconian cruiser opened a jump-point-to-swirling portal that would take them across vast distances in moments. Jack gazed at the stars stretching before them. When he had joined the Interstellar Defense Force, he had been just a recruit, the lowest rank, assigned to the most menial job. Now he was at the center of events that would reshape the galaxy. "I still don't understand why you chose to help humans," Jack said to Nexus. "Out of all the species you could have allied with." "Because when faced with the truth about the Coalition, you did not think of power or revenge," Nexus replied. "Your first thought was to protect your world, to warn your people. Strength tempered by compassion that is rare and valuable." The shuttle entered the jump point, the swirling energies enveloping them in blue light. "Earth will not face the coming changes alone," Nexus continued. "The apex predator has made its allegiance clear." Jack nodded, understanding at last. Sometimes the most unlikely allies were the strongest. A human who had been just a recruit and a creature from a nearly forgotten age were about to change everything. As Earth appeared on their view screen, beautiful and blue, and unsuspecting of the galactic politics about to reach its shores, Jack made a silent promise. He would protect his home, and with Nexus at his side, he would help build a better galaxy, one based on cooperation and respect, rather than fear and control. The human was no longer just a recruit. Now he was a messenger, a defender, and perhaps, most importantly, a bridge between worlds. And the apex predator that everyone feared had become humanity's most powerful ally.